Hi Samantha, thank you
Hi.
for joining us today. For our audience who is not very familiar with your work, could you just shortly introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Samantha Webb, and I'm a freelance narrative designer. I've got experience across AAA and indie studios. I also have a master's degree in game design. And I actually came across the games industry from a business consultancy background, so very different.
So you've helped a lot of young writers throughout your career, you've mentored them. Could you tell us what are some of the most often advices or feedbacks that you give? Is there something you found yourself repeating to a lot of young writers?
So normally when I'm mentoring, so I've mentored quite a few writers who are looking to break into the industry. So they're kind of looking for their first role. They're all obviously writers at heart. You know, they do a lot of work and they put a lot of work into it. And one of the biggest pieces of feedback I see myself saying to most of them is around moving away from prose writing. So lots of people, when they have their first portfolio, it does tend to be full of kind of short story pieces and short pieces of fiction. I think because prose is so accessible to us, because we grow up reading, it's something we know naturally how to do. And yet obviously a lot of game writing is dialogue and script based. So we have a lot of discussions about learning the basics of script writing and thinking through how they can maybe repurpose some of their short stories into a more dialogue-focused piece of script work. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I think I've noticed. And usually it's we focus a lot on portfolios and how to take your portfolio to the next level.
So you're currently freelancing and handling multiple projects at the same time. So my question to you is, how do you manage with where, for instance, avoiding NDA mishaps, or when projects overlap because one of them got delayed inevitably or changed in scope or whatever?
Yeah.
How do you deal with all that?
Well, it's something that from my business consultancy background, I would often work with kind of 2 or 3 clients at the same time. So it's something that I'm lucky because I've had that prior experience. So when I moved into freelancing, it came quite natural, that idea of kind of juggling commitments and priorities. And I think for me, it's like I have a very clear idea of, I know where my professional boundaries are. So if I do get into a situation where I realise I'm going to have to effectively put in overtime to get something done, like for me personally, I'd rather do kind of a 12-hour day and then know that I have my weekends free. So I think like understanding that about yourself, like how you best work and what your what boundaries you're willing to go to really helps, because that way I'm able to keep a fairly healthy work-life balance, even when everything seems to be crunching at the same time.
I've read about you obviously and stumbled upon this gem of a project called Yokai Moon.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about it? How did you end up joining the project, and what inspired the Japanese themed world?
Yeah, so Yokai Moon is actually a passion project that I'm doing with a couple of my friends, Abby and Ashley. So they actually did the majority of the design, the development and the creative direction between them. And then they were looking for a writer to come on board and help them with the narrative and the dialogue bits. And I actually did my master's degree with them. So we'd worked on game jams before, we'd worked on projects before. So when they invited me to come on board, I was just very excited to be involved in working with them again on something a lot more ambitious than we've done before. And the Japanese theme really, it's kind of like all 3 of us are interested in mythology and legend. My undergraduate degree was actually in ancient history, so it's something that, you know, just give me a historical culture and mythology to go investigate and I'm happy. And it's also like the 3 of us have grown up kind of watching anime and playing traditional Japanese video games. So yeah, exactly, like we love Pokemon, we love the Final Fantasy series. And Abby puts it really nicely when she says that Yokai Moon is basically our love letter to the games that we played growing up. And I think that sums it up really, like that's what we're doing with that project.
That's a wonderful sentiment.
It's lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
You've taken a AAA project a few months back, and my question to you is, how much more difficult do you find writing for AAA as opposed to indie dev? And how do you overcome those hurdles?
I think the biggest difference between AAA and indie is the scale, right? Like AAA tends to be a lot bigger. And quite often a narrative team in AAA will be bigger than the actual whole team of an indie project. So the biggest thing there is kind of communication. It's understanding who your stakeholders are, I suppose, and who is interested in what you're doing and who needs to kind of give approval on what you're doing. And it's not always clear. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But I think if you're on a AAA project, like getting to know that early on will only help you, because if you know who you need to be showing stuff to and who you need to be checking in with, that will help massively. Whereas in indie, I'm finding that's coming a bit more naturally because there are only so many people and you know each one of them individually. Whereas again in AAA, there'll be whole teams that you won't necessarily even talk to, but still need to know about what you're writing. So yeah, it is just the scale is really the biggest difference that I've noticed.
As more AAA projects come your way, do you see yourself moving further from indie dev, moving away from that and giving more room to AAA, or are you just kind of passionate about indie and trying to stay there?
I think it's a really good question, and I think for me, I'm just happy telling stories, and to be honest, AAA and indie are both doing that so brilliantly at the moment, that as long as I'm involved in that and involved in making those stories through games, I am more than happy. I've really enjoyed both my AAA and my indie experience. I've learned a lot from both of them. And I feel like I'm still kind of early enough in my career that I definitely want to carry on exploring both options. I'd love to write for some different studios and different genres and things like that. So I'm definitely not ready to go down one path or the other yet, but who knows in the future.
Let's suppose someone is looking into going into AAA. Would you advise them to directly apply to bigger companies or maybe just try their own smaller games first?
I think honestly do a bit of everything. So definitely be making your own games and your own writing. That's one of the biggest differentiators I see between people who want to be writers and the people who get to be writers. The people who will get there are the ones who are working in their spare times on making Twine projects or working with some of their friends and making a little Unity project or whatever. And I think, honestly, when I was first applying, I would apply for everything that I was qualified for because there are so few jobs and so many people wanting them that I think it would be a dangerous thing maybe to narrow down your search in the early days. So yeah, I definitely advise be doing stuff in your own time. Apply for anything that you're qualified for. And then if you really do want to write either AAA or indie, I'd suggest examining why you want to do that. So is it that you want to write for a specific franchise? Is it that you want to write a specific kind of game? And really understand why you want to be in a particular stream, I suppose, of narrative, because that will then help you kind of know what you need to learn and where you need to be looking for the future.
If you were to give one single piece of advice to someone who's just now starting their career and going into game writing, what would that be?
It would probably be don't give up. It's really hard. It's hard to get jobs. It's hard to stand out from other writers. It's obviously a challenging job when you're in it. Writing is a very technical, skilled thing. And there's always lots to learn. There's always new challenges to meet. And I think just perseverance, if you've been rejected 9 times, maybe the 10th time is going to be the time you get it. And if you fail at something 4 times, maybe the 5th time is going to be the one that gets you. So just don't give up, carry on going. Even if that means doing stuff in your spare time in the evening and working another job in the day, just carry on going until you get there. Don't give up.